Day 105, the Fillmore District, also known as the Western Addition, also known as the Harlem of the West. If you really want to go back far enough in San Francisco history, the Western Addition, Fillmore, etc., was part of a tract of land known as the Van Ness Ordinance. Geographically, the Fillmore is surrounded by Civic Center, Alamo Square, Painted Ladies neighborhood, Haight-Ashbury, Lone Mountain USF neighborhood, and then Japantown Pacific Heights. So obviously it's going to look backwards. I knew the Fillmore, or the first time I had heard of the Fillmore was put on any kind of my radar was when I went to high school. George Washington, 32nd and Geary in what is known as the Outer Richmond. And I remember when I was making friends, when I was meeting people, got to this big high school, a lot of people came from the Fillmore. A lot of people lived in the Fillmore. And it was very quickly evident that there was a large concentration of housing projects, public housing in the Fillmore District. And I'm pretty sure arguably the second largest concentration in San Francisco after Bayview Hunters Point, closer to the Mission District on that side of town, which is where I grew up, Outer Mission District. So anyway, the Fillmore District is one of San Francisco's oldest historically African-American neighborhoods. What happened was during World War II, there was a large concentration of Black people that moved from the South to California to work on the shipyards. And the more working class folks lived in Bayview Hunters Point, and then folks that had some money, folks with some affluent folks, they moved to the Fillmore District, the Western Addition. So this little hotspot, this little hub, it became known as the Harlem of the West because of the explosion of jazz music culture that came out of there. It was a very affluent, cultural, trendy part of town. And then 60s and 70s, San Francisco did a horrendous demolitions is what they did. They literally flat zoned everything in what was called urban renewal. So it sounds nice, but they decimated businesses. They tore down Victorians. There were a bunch of Victorians in the Western Addition, by the way, a lot more than there are now once upon a time. And they converted it to housing projects. They displaced a bunch of people. One of the stages of gentrification that came much sooner than the rest of San Francisco. But again, I knew the Fillmore District to be a solidly African-American neighborhood. And I think it's disgusting. Like, you'll walk down Fillmore Street, and I'm talking Fillmore between, Geary, McAllister, Eddy, Golden Gate, before you get to Pacific Heights and before you get to Alamo Square, solid historic African-American neighborhood. The first Black church in San Francisco is there, not far from there. And you'll walk there nowadays, you won't see a single Black person. It's actually quite disgusting, but that's a very, very brief history of the Fillmore District. Please take my Alamo Square and Harlem of the West tour, where we can cover this history more in depth.